Hey everybody, today we're joined by Lindsay Hopkins, who you should definitely check out on Instagram. She posts some very funny reels of her cooking all sorts of delicious meat. So I wanted to reach out and, and have a chat. Also, the reels are very funny, which we'll get into. So, Lindsay, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, good to meet you and good to pop your podcast cherry because this is
Truly,
yeah,
yeah. We'll see how this goes. I might
yeah,
be terrible at it. We'll find out.
yeah. Yeah, as I was saying before, I found you on Instagram, and when I was first watching you do these videos where like you're kind of not talking and you're sort of not really looking at the camera and it's going super fast, and
Uh-huh.
I was like, I'm not sure if this is serious or if this is taking the piss, as we would say in Australia. Um,
Mhm.
and I think it's a bit of both, right?
It is. It's meant to be, serious about the food, but kind of a comment on other influencers talking about their diet in a way that just is a little ridiculous. So that's kind of my point.
Yeah, there's a lot of like my way or the highway online. Like you have to do it like this. You know, if you do it like this, it'll change your life. Like a lot of big promises.
100%. Yeah. 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 And there's a lot of really what it was is I was seeing so many of those what I eat in a day videos from like Instagram model type people where, they're posed and they're in a bikini and whatever. And the message is very much like what I eat to be hot, even if that's not expressly what they're saying. So I was like, all right, I'll say the same thing, literally, but it's just, a tri tip and see what happens.
Yeah, it's like yeah, what I eat in a day to be the hottest influencer and number one parkour person in the world or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So it's going pretty well. A lot of people hate it, but it's fun, you know?
That's the sign of a good channel. If you're not getting a bit of hate in the comments, you're not doing it right.
Well, then I'm definitely doing it right then.
Yeah, yeah. I saw people were very curious about your poo, basically, and you were like, post.
Very curious.
Okay.
That's one of the main questions. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
um, all right. So, on a sort of more serious note, what got you into eating more meat and carnivore? Because I assume you do mainly carnivore.
I do, yeah. So I first heard about it from Jordan Peterson.
Mm,
I
cool.
heard him talking about it on Joe Rogan. And he was describing some of the autoimmune issues that he was struggling with. And I was like, I have a lot of those same things. Um, so I kind of just decided to give it a whirl. I also coincidentally had been in this phase of like I thought that I was just incurably lazy as a
Mm,
person because I had no motivation. I was really low energy. Um, had horrible brain fog. I didn't necessarily understand that that was the issue at the time, so I was just kind of ready to try anything and had also been diagnosed with ADHD and was on ADHD medications and antidepressants and like had psoriasis and I was itchy and I had steroid cream and I was like, this is not a way that I want to live for the rest of my life. So hearing him say that there might be another cure for all of those issues was exciting. And I tried it, and within 3 weeks, my psoriasis was gone. And then I was able to go all off of all of my medications and just had
mm.
this like newfound energy, and I felt so much, my mood was so much better. I feel like I have a different brain, truly. So yeah, so that was kind of my journey.
That's awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I can definitely relate to the ADHD and brain fog thing in a big way. It's almost like okay, either I hate doing anything that's productive,
Yeah.
and I'm never going to be able to be just like a happy, productive person in my life,
Yeah.
or maybe there's something else going on.
Totally. Like I literally was like, I'm gonna be homeless because
Yeah,
I can't do anything. Like
yeah,
I would like was a terrible employee just generally. But the one thing that always got me is I was like, I want to do things. Like I feel like if I was truly just lazy, I wouldn't care. Like this
yeah.
wouldn't bother me. So that's where I was like, all right, I gotta figure this out.
100%. And then when you
Yeah.
do go to sort of concentrate, you're like, okay, now I'm going to do that task that I was supposed to do. It's like requiring all of your attention and all of your effort. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't just be like this all the time. It can't always
Right.
be
It's
such a chore.
exhausting.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you get, I don't know if you experience this, but when you have a challenge, you start to get like an anxiety about getting burnt out before you even start. So then you just
Mm,
don't start. And I think that's the other interesting thing about doing carnivore is just the fact that it's such a discipline that I think in addition to like the nutritional benefits, going through that discipline and doing something that's so hard, I think also that in and of itself just like rewired my brain. And now when I'm presented with things, I'm like, I did something crazy and like changed my whole life basically. So I can do this tiny little thing and figure it out.
yeah, 100%. Carnivore is a massive challenge, and you have to
Yeah.
you have to do your own research. You have to
Yeah.
really buck the trend of society. And you're right. Like it's a launching point for a lot of people to go into to create a whole new life for themselves, or really try and
Totally.
find what they're supposed to be doing, because
Yeah.
it takes, as you say, discipline, organization, balls. Like you got to really
Yep.
you
Yeah.
you're like, okay, government dietary guidelines are wrong. Cholesterol's not going to
Right.
kill me. I don't need fiber. I'm going to really back myself in here. If
Oh, totally.
if I screw this up, I might die.
Right. And then on top of that, socially, it's like, okay, everyone
Yeah.
now thinks that you're a conspiracy theorist
Mm,
and you sound crazy and everyone hates you and they're like, you're boring now. And I think maybe you've lost your mind. So, you know, there's also that aspect.
100%. And
Yeah.
I've endured that too. Yeah, I think some people still think I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
Nut job, believe anything, who knows? Yeah.
Totally.
Mm, yeah, but it's part of growing up, and it's part of healing. I think you just
Absolutely. And then you also find like at the end of it, at least for me, like I made new friends or like my friendships with other people were strengthened or either or not, and you kind of figure out like who's your good community that supports you and loves you and is going to be like, all right, even though you're not like partying anymore and drinking and like eating the same things that we are, like we still love you, because there's also the people who are like, you're not entertaining to me anymore, so I'm not going to hang out with you. And
100%.
that's hard. That sucks, but you know.
Yeah, it's so hard. You don't serve me anymore. You don't sort of back me up, and you don't align with what
Right.
I'm with the way that I'm living anymore. You don't make me feel good about myself because I realize, shit, I could probably be doing something better. And
That's a huge part of it that I think about all the time is I think people assume that I have this like self-righteous, like I'm better than you, which like I don't care what you do. But I think that's a huge part of it is I find that people try to get me to like eat things that I don't want to or whatever. And I think it comes from a place of like, I deep down probably feel like I shouldn't be doing this. So it'll make me feel better if I can get you to do something bad, you know, level the playing field or something. I don't know. It's
100%.
okay.
So we're talking about the social pressures that can come from essentially taking control of your health and doing what's right for you. And
Yeah.
I completely agree. People are projecting their own problems on you or on us, and it can make them feel a little bit uncomfortable when you're like, no, I'm not eating that. I'm not drinking that. I actually just want to feel good. I want to live a long and healthy life. It's like
Right.
shining a spot. It's the old like mirror right in their face.
100%. Yeah. And I think also we've gotten so conditioned I mean, there's so much messaging on Instagram, or just on the internet in general that's like, if you do anything disciplined, it's actually restrictive
Yeah.
and you're hurting yourself. And oh, if you're sad, just take a pill. There's nothing else that you can do about it. And, that's what I thought. I was like, oh, I need to be medicated. So, which some people probably still think I should be medicated, but that's beside the point.
Yeah. Put that to one side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And taking it's almost like just because you're taking control in one part of your life, again, people might start to think, oh, that they might be judging me for my other beliefs, or they might
Yeah.
be, or they might be thinking, they might suddenly be like really sort of leaning to the right politically or something like that. It
Right.
just like creates this whole like, oh,
Right.
but me relying on other people for every aspect of my life is cool still, right?
Right. No, totally. Like there's a bunch of stigma that comes with doing this diet. So it is kind of a crazy, like you just get immediately labeled and put into a bucket, like an extremist bucket, which there's a part of that that's fair. It is extreme. So I get where it comes from, but yeah, it's tough. It's interesting.
Mm. And how's your health going now?
Great. Like I said, my psoriasis is gone. I struggled for a really long time with anxiety and depression. And I mean, since probably around the time that I started going through puberty, which I think is pretty normal. And then it just like never went away. The brain fog also started around the same time where I would just get horrible brain fog starting in the early afternoon. And I was like useless for the rest of the day until like 6 p.m. And I noticed all of a sudden I would feel fine again. And then, but, and I also would do this thing, which this is kind of a random thing. I was like textbook ADHD. I was just never diagnosed. I was a horrible student. Got terrible grades just because I literally couldn't get myself to sit down and do my homework. The problem though was that I tested really high on like standardized testing and stuff like that. So I was told that I was lazy. Like that
Mm,
was the messaging that I received, where they were like, clearly you're capable of doing your homework. So and whereas in my head I was like, I just can't get myself to do anything, but I just assumed that it was my fault. So all of those issues kind of went away. Like the big, I mean, obviously health wise, from with psoriasis and everything, that's obviously huge. But I think the biggest thing for me was how I feel now with in terms of like mental acuity. Like I just feel sharper. I feel like my memory is better. Um, I can focus for way longer. Yeah, like that's the hugest thing to me.
mm, that's awesome. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
My story is very similar. And I like when I first started getting interested in carnivore, it was a time when I was working a job, wasn't really enjoying it. Everything was a chore at work. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I want to do something else. I want to enjoy my life more. I want to do more. So I'm going to
Yeah.
need to work and study outside of the 9 to 5. And if you
Yeah.
have poor mental health, you have no energy, you have brain fog, the idea of getting home and then heading into your office or your workplace and being like, okay, cool, I'm going to punch out 3 hours of solid productive work tonight. It's like that's like torture in your mind. You're like,
Totally.
I
A
cannot
hundred.
bring myself to do that. I just want to lie on the couch and eat shit food.
Right. Exactly. 100%. And like scroll on your phone and then you just lay there for 5 hours and do nothing. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And until you pass out and you wake up and you've got like a headache when you wake up, you know.
Right.
So it's sort of,
Yeah.
yeah, it comes from, there has to be, often there's like a real need when people want to change. It's like that there's some element of rock bottom. Do you feel like you got to a rock bottom point?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said this, but I literally was like, I think I'm going to be homeless or something for the rest of my life because I just I don't want to do anything. I'm not going to be able to hold a job down. I'm, never going to be satisfied. I had this whole like existential crisis because I was like, why, like what's the point? Like if this is all it's going to feel like for the rest of my life and I have to do these like mundane tasks and hate it and it's torture every time I have to do anything, why am I doing that? So fully rock bottom,
Yeah,
100%.
wow.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
And so discovering Jordan Peterson, that was the thing that got you thinking, okay, maybe there's something out there.
Yes. That and it came at the same time too. Like I said, I was thinking that I was lazy. And I also, like, around the same time, happened to see a TikTok of all things that was like, laziness as it relates to like clinical personality traits isn't actually like a core trait. It's usually a combination of like anxiety, ADHD, things like that, especially if you're noticing it and it's bothering you, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's not just like, oh, I don't care. You do care, you just can't get yourself to do things. So then I heard Jordan Peterson, kind of went on a rabbit hole with him, and like ended up doing his personality test that he has just out of curiosity. And so it was kind of a combination of realizing, like, I think there were a lot of lifestyle changes I had to make from a diet perspective, but then it also was telling me, like, you're never going to do well. Essentially told me, you know, you're a creative person, you're driven by creative things, your brain works like an entrepreneur, and you should not be doing mundane administrative tasks at the bottom of a hierarchy. You will never be happy doing that. So, which is exactly the job that I had. So, yeah, so it kind of sent off this whole, like, what am I going to change about my life from many different angles? and yeah, that was kind of the journey.
Yeah, I love it. Jordan and Michaela Peterson have red pilled so many people on the carnivore diet. You know, I
Yeah.
think they're possibly up there with number one. And like even in that recent interview with Jordan Peterson and Elon Musk, where Elon Musk
Yeah.
mentions he's
Oh,
got the
sorry.
sore.
This is on a motion sensor. There we go.
Elon Musk mentions he's got the sore back, and Jordan Peterson's like, do the carnivore diet, and he
Hmm.
just won't give in. And Musk is like, oh yeah, right, no, do the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
their persistence with this message is amazing, and it's helping so many people, just like you.
Yeah. And it's very cool because so my dad had MS, and it's interesting to see people sharing alternative information
Mm.
about a lot of autoimmune or you know, autoimmune adjacent issues, where it's like it's so sad that so many people might not have access to it. You know, that's a whole different conspiratorial conversation, but that's a huge deal to me that they're sharing that. Sean Baker is sharing that, just because I know there's so many people who were like, oh, there's no fix for this, or I have to be on meds for the rest of my life, and I just, there's no way to solve my problems. And it's like, no, there really might be. There really might be.
100%. And people will sort of have to spend years going on this journey of paying to see specialists, living in
Mm-hmm.
pain, trying different things, and then something as simple as a TikTok reel
Right.
might be the thing that completely turns their life around. Like it's just amazing
Totally.
what I mean, it's amazing what value we can give and other people can give simply by sharing the message of, hey, why don't you consider this? Maybe it's the food that's slowly poisoning you.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's kind of another thing that made me want to start making videos, is I was like, I think so many other diets or lifestyle choices that I might not agree with have become so mainstream, where it's like when you see that, a lot of people don't question it. So it's like if somebody sees my crazy videos and then
Yeah,
starts thinking maybe I should be questioning the advice that I'm getting from random influencers on the internet, you know, maybe I should be doing my own research and seeing what alternatives there are. Um, yeah.
yeah. I mean, because and I'm similar. Like I'm not purporting to be an absolute expert, but I think you and
Yeah.
I can sort of share the message in our own way, and then also share sort of links and stuff to people like Michaela
Yeah.
Peterson or Dr. Chafee or Dr. Baker, people who are more technical, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because that's the other thing. I'm not by any means, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not, you know, and I think that's the other thing, is a lot of people are seeing videos from people who are very clinical, or, and also a lot of them are men too. So I was like,
Yeah,
I think, you know, for people to see like a normal person sometimes who's like, I tried it too, and I'm not a big bulky man, and you know, so like it can be for lots of people. It's not just for male doctors. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. That is one of the things that I thought when I first saw your video and I saw your page. I was like, oh, she looks like a super normal girl, like the same age as me, like making
Yeah,
funny videos about carnivore. And like I watched some of your videos, and I'm like, oh, these recipes are actually carnivore. Like it's just meat with a little bit of salt. I was like,
yeah,
oh wow, this is really cool. And we definitely, it's good to see people of all different demographics and backgrounds making content, because
yeah,
naturally people who are similar to you will often kind of gravitate towards your message.
yeah, 100%.
So
Yeah.
did you just start making, because it looks like it's your personal page? Did you just start posting videos of you cooking meat? Is that how it started?
Yeah, um I liked to make just silly little videos anyway. I just never shared them. I basically just sent them to my fiance like in text just for fun. And he was like, I think people would watch these. So he was like, I think you should start posting these. And I was like, I think that's a terrible idea. But he talked me into it and it's just fun. So yeah, I've been doing carnivore for 3 years, but I just started posting videos like in December, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. It's going well.
How long have you been doing carnivore?
For probably coming up to 4 years, I think.
four
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
How did you get into it?
Well, I sort of did like the classic, like gluten-free paleo, keto, carnivore kind of transition.
Yeah.
And and like similar to you, particularly when I was a kid, and then when I was at university, I had ADHD, or
Yeah.
supposedly. And
Yeah.
fortunately, when I was like 11 or something, the teacher said to my parents, "Oh, before you try the medication, why don't you go and get his allergies tested and see if maybe
Oh, wow.
it's
Good for
something."
your teacher.
I know, and that's like a long time ago. It's like more than 20 years ago. So, um,
Wow.
so I got my allergies tested, and then they came back and it said, "Oh, he's intolerant to gluten and dairy." I mean, now I realize that pretty much everyone's intolerant to gluten and dairy. Shouldn't be eating that shit. But then I just
Yeah.
didn't eat that stuff for 6 months, and like my parents were great about it. Like we were strict, just didn't eat any of those things, and I felt so much better. So I feel,
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah. And before that, my favorite food was Italian food. Like I loved pizza and pasta. And so
Hmm.
I sort of feel really lucky that from that age, I realized, okay, the food has a huge impact on how you feel.
Yeah,
And so many people are still in denial about that. Uh,
totally.
and,
Which
you know,
blows my mind, but it's true. A lot of people don't think that there's a connection almost at all.
yeah, 100%. Like, oh, food couldn't make that much of a difference. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is
But
wild.
yeah, it's
Like,
crazy.
think about literally any mechanism that runs on fuel. You can't just put anything in there, you know,
Yeah.
like a
And
car, you know.
yeah. And these toxins or whatever you're putting in is going straight into your bloodstream. It's literally the fuel that your whole body's running on. How can you think that that's the major thing? That's a major piece of information that's coming into your body, and you think that doesn't matter?
Right.
I think the light and stress, and I think all these things matter as well. I just think nutrition is the number one, and it's the most important.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
so it's nuts that people still aren't on board with that. Um, so then the other time that this whole like ADHD thing really reared its head was when I was at university and I was studying, like dead boring topics basically. And you're forced to produce an essay at a certain date. Um,
Right.
and of course, I did absolutely nothing until like 48 hours before it, when it was
Oh, yeah.
panic stations. And then I
Yeah.
was taking Ritalin, like ADHD drugs, and just going on like a 24-hour bender in the library, like just trying to crank this thing out. Terrible experience, really terrible, which I think
Yeah.
you can relate to.
Oh, absolutely. Like I was the exact same way, was the craziest procrastinator of all time. And then at that point, like you're running on adrenaline. So you are actually getting some boost and then you just feel terrible afterwards. So I had to wait until I got that panic. Otherwise I couldn't do anything. Like I needed a little chemical, something to get me going. But yeah, it's like the least sustainable system.
100%. And you have to go to a pretty dark place. And as you say, afterwards, you just feel like you've been hit by a truck and you're like, what was that? That was a panicked, experience.
Oh, totally. And I used to like part of the ADHD, which I actually didn't even really fully realize what I was doing until like a year ago. I was listening to Huberman, an
Mm,
episode on uh it might have been specific to ADHD, I can't remember. But basically he was talking about the chemical like peaks and troughs that you experience as a heroin addict. And when I it was worse when I was younger, but it had persisted and then went away almost entirely when I started doing carnivore. I used to daydream aggressively for like 90% of my waking hours, which I did some research on, and I guess it's called maladaptive daydreaming. But I would follow this same thing that he was describing with like peaks and then like high highs and low lows. And I remember thinking, even when I was little, I could tell where I was like, whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm addicted to this. But I would just imagine like really intense scenarios, and then I think it would release, I would get chemical release from it and feel really good for a little bit, and then I would tank and feel really sad. But that's gone away. And that's like a crazy where it's like, I think if I told anyone that, they would have said that I was like schizophrenic or something. But so, I'm glad I kept that one to myself. But that also went away when I changed my diet. And I think it was just like I was kind of subconsciously coping with the fact that my body was like, you need a boost. And this is the only way to get it. So,
mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. That's crazy. And if you, as you say, if you'd said that to somebody, like maybe if you said it to your parents or something, they might have said, "Okay, cool. So you're going to go see a psychiatrist for once a week for the rest of your life. You got major
Totally.
issues, and you're just going to talk about your issues."
Right.
And it's like,
Yeah.
so are we ever getting to the root cause of this, or do we think that maybe this just isn't normal? Like, do we think that our ancestors just had these like, yeah, crazy daydreams, crazy procrastination? Um,
Totally. I mean, if it was the 50s, I would have been diagnosed with like hysteria and, or something like that. Like that's what, I'm the kind of person you lock up, I think, instead of like, no, she just needs a steak.
yeah. Just need some proper nutrition and stop putting the plants and the processed shit in. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's huge. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad. Yeah, I'm really glad we both discovered this. Hopefully people will listen to this and they will think, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to feel so crazy. Or if somebody's listening and they know someone who has these kind of mood swings and ADHD and brain fog and daydreaming and all these things, just send this to them because this might be the answer that they're looking for.
100%. Like it's nice to know that there might be hope and it's not just a prescription for the rest of your life.
Hmm. Well, so what are your thoughts about like sharing that message through your Instagram page? Because like a lot of, I don't know if you really have shared that much sort of like personal success story with Carnivore so far. Like a lot of it's really funny about like being a professional parkour athlete with an IQ of 277. Like, maybe you could would you sprinkle in the message of how much you've healed?
Yeah, definitely. I haven't, that's a good point. I haven't yet. I think my instinct is always to go for the entertainment factor rather than like, here's my sob story. But yeah, no, that's a good point. Cause I mean, I think it's because socially, like I tend to share that kind of stuff like with my friends.
Yeah,
Um,
that's cool.
but yeah, no, it's a good point. I really should probably share more of that because I mean, so many people I know are medicated for, you know, everything. Um, and I think it's become very normal to assume that being in a somewhat depressed or anxious state is normal. So people don't understand that your baseline could be way higher than you realize. And so, I've talked to a lot of people who are like, no, I think I'm fine. Like I'm on antidepressants and, but that's normal. And so I think reminding people like that's not normal, and you don't need that, and you might be able to solve this just by changing your lifestyle. Yeah, it's a good message to get out there, so I will work on that.
Yeah. It is a good message. Yeah, I can't stand that attitude of, oh, well, these days everybody's on medication. Everyone has a
Right.
psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no reason. It's not like now for most people is like a super stressful, challenging, difficult time. Like if anything, we've got it. We should have it way easier than any other generation with all the
Yeah.
technology, access to everything we need. You know,
Right.
the sun is still shining exactly
Right.
how it was in the past. People are the excuses are mounting up.
Yeah. And it seems to be, in fact, the most anxious, society probably ever. If
Probably,
I would be willing to bet.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. All right, Lindsay, anything that you want to kind of leave people with? Check out your Instagram page. People should do that. Lindsay Hopkins.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean that's it. And share, share this kind of information with your friends. And I always say, do your own research. Whatever you see on the internet, do your own research. That's the biggest thing. Yeah.
100%. All right, Lindsay, thank you so much.
Thank you.